Well, hello and welcome again to Resi Live. I'm Daniel Larson, and as you can see, Nate is not here. He has abandoned us, but that's okay because we brought in some additional firepower. His name is Joel Lombardo. He's our guest today. He's also a coworker of mine here at Resi, handling all things web and website and things that I have no idea about, which is great because he's a wizard at it. So, Joel, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I don't think I could ever replace Nate, and I don't think I've ever been called firepower before.
Oh, you
So,
are now. You are now.
wow, I'm honored. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. It's really is super cool to have you, one, on this team, but also here on this show because, we try to, just kind of talk about whatever kind of is going on in terms of streaming in this context, in this day and age. Like, what are we doing? How are we doing this? How are we maximizing our streams to, reach our audiences? And what's really cool, what, people don't know but will know about you is that you actually come from a pastoral ministry background, and yet somehow you are now here with us at Resi. And so we just thought it'd be really cool to take this time today to kind of learn a little bit more about you, kind of where your ministry background comes from, and then kind of see how see what your thoughts are on kind of this digital evolution, as it were, of digital reach. Call it evangelism, call it, this kind of idea of like church now has a new front door, and it is your live stream. And so we'd love to kind of get your thoughts on that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your ministry background, and we'll get started.
Absolutely. Like you said, my name is Joel Lombardo. I live in the woods in north central Minnesota.
Which
With my
I love that about you, by the way. I just got to say.
Thank you,
Yeah, you're welcome.
thank you.
You're welcome.
It's something that I've always wanted to be in the woods. Our home is pretty rustic. They got these IKEA lights behind me, but everything else about my life is rustic. We heat our home with a wood stove, and I'm out there at 5 a.m. chopping wood. Um,
So
getting
amazing.
everything ready for winter and all that. And I just keep the Super Nintendo back here so people think that I at least know what I'm doing a little bit. Um, but I'm just, after this, I throw in my Carhartt and I go chop wood and stack wood and
Dude,
take care of the land,
you're an inspiration
So,
to us all.
wow, I really appreciate that. So,
Absolutely. All
yeah,
right, sorry to derail. Sorry to derail.
it's
I just think
okay.
that's just an amazing part about you. But anyway, so you're up
It's
in the
okay.
woods, and we'll pick us up there.
Absolutely. Um, I was a pastor down in Minneapolis, the Minneapolis area. When my wife and I found out we were expecting, we just knew that that wasn't where we wanted our son to grow up. We wanted him to be outside and running around and enjoying the grass, and we also have family up here, so we came up here to be by family. And Ministry opportunities have just always followed us wherever we've gone, and that's truly a God thing. And at the same time, I've also had web development opportunities. So up here in the middle of nowhere, in the woods and with a wood stove and electricity that cuts out every day, we've got fast internet, so I can do development, and so it's just been all these fun little opportunities all along the way. But rewinding quite a bit, when I was very little, I remember being in our family van with my mom, and we were driving across town and we saw a construction site. And I remember saying to my mom, one day I want to be a construction worker so I can build a church, and then I want to teach at that church. And
Wow.
so from a very young age, I've always had this idea or goal that one of my life's purposes would be to build church communities and to teach the gospel. And it just so happens that so far, a lot of this building and construction has taken place over the internet,
Mm.
and specifically with web development. And but a website can only take a church so far, right? Because there's a real life person uh, who's behind the screen, and the real challenge is to actually meet that person and to shake their hand and to pray with them. And so I became an online pastor at a church in the Minneapolis area where I could combine my gifts of programming and my passion for ministry and people, and to go out and meet those people where they were at. Um, we at that church we started live streaming when swine flu was going around, and so about 10 years ago when that pandemic was doing its thing. That wasn't a pandemic, that was an epidemic. Anyway,
Sure.
people were nervous. They were staying at home, and we wanted to still get church to them. And so it was just a very early attempt at live streaming. There weren't all the tools that there were today, but we made it work. And all of a sudden, we found out that, hey, there's like 20,000 people watching. Someone needs to reach out to these people, get to know them, and shepherd this flock because there are people here. And so that turned into a online pastor role. Prior to that, I was a youth pastor. Um, that was right after college, and all of a sudden my student loans kicked in, and I quickly found out that I was making less than my monthly student loan payment.
Yikes.
And so throughout that early ministry career, web development has been a way for, like Paul, that was my tent making. I was a tent maker as a web developer, so I could fund my ministry opportunities. And that's really how I look at web development. It's my passion is ministry. My passion is to share the gospel. And so if I can use web development as a way for me to be able to go and do that, I am all for that. So Resi has given me the opportunity for that, and I'm extremely grateful.
Mm. That's so awesome, man. Well, we are definitely happy to have you on the team. I mean, yeah, being me not being a web developer at all, but getting to work on the same team with you is just amazing. Knowing that I can say, "Hey, Joel, I don't know how to do this," and you just, obviously you've got so much experience in the web development realm that it seems like your passion, and yet also knowing that there's like that deeper passion for ministry underneath that, which is so cool to see on a day in and day out basis. So appreciate you. So let's get into this idea of like digital reach, digital evangelism, using the technology that we have at hand to kind of expand, the church's, influence in culture in our daily lives. And so, why don't you talk to us a little bit about, maybe those early days of streaming, kind of the returns you guys saw on that, and then how that kind of shaped the way ministry was kind of looked at, kind of like in those, kind of shortly thereafter you guys started streaming, and what some of the moves were that you guys made once you realized that there was a captive audience.
Absolutely. And that's a big challenge. I think every church that does live streaming has run into that conundrum of, hey, we've got people watching. What are we going to do about it now? So back in those early days of streaming, there wasn't something like Resi. You just kind of had to scrape together the equipment that you had and find a way to broadcast that. The solutions that were out there were extremely expensive. And so, if we had Resi back in the day, it would have been a significant relief to the budget. Um, and so, not only is Resi incredibly reliable and just such a cool service, but it also
Please
does
tell us
the
more.
church
Tell us more.
right? Well, it does the church a service as well, just from a financial standpoint, for the reliability you get, and then also just financial stewardship. So that's something that I'm extremely excited to be a part of. Anyway, I say all that because managing the budget for live streaming in the past was always like, they're just tossing so much money at this. And yes, it was worth it because we're getting the gospel out there all throughout the world. Um, but it was a financial burden back then.
Hmm.
And as we progressed, we upgraded our equipment and found efficient ways of doing things. But there was still that piece of, hey, there's all these people watching. What are we going to do to foster a relationship with them and provide those next steps for them in their faith and get them plugged into a community?
Yeah. I
Because
wonder,
church,
sorry, just to, this question just kind of popped up. Like, was there, from leadership, was there like this fear of, you know, oh my goodness, like there's all these people online, like, is that going to impact our attendance? Or, were you guys kind of like going into that with kind of eyes wide open and knowing like, hey, like we're just going to do this, whether it impacts the attendance or not?
absolutely. I think again, that's something that I think a lot of pastors and church leaders are wary of. But really, when we dug into why people were watching online, it really made it easy for us to want to pursue it further. We had a large portion of our congregation who was a very active part of our congregation for many, many years. And then, due to age or moving away, or health issues, they just weren't able to be a part of our physical location anymore. And so, um, when we saw it as a way to still reach those who were maybe in nursing homes or assisted living or any of those, where they could still have that church experience, um, that really opened our eyes to like, yeah, let's go full in on this for those people. And then where I came in is I would go to those places. We would have nursing homes that we would set up a TV, we'd show the live stream, and I would be there with them. And so I was a presence. Well, we had 8, 12 people watching the message together, and then I'd be there to talk and to pray, and to just kind of be a face to what was going on in that building over
Hmm.
there. And then to bring that back to church leadership, say, hey, this is what's going on at this nursing home. These are the prayer requests. These are also some technical issues that we saw, that we can work on. And so for us, that was a great way to bridge that gap of just who's watching. We don't know, we're just throwing this out there without really having a good idea of who's being hit by it.
Mm-hmm.
Being out there and um, hearing the stories and how the live stream and just was impacting them by just feeling like they were still a part of this community that they loved for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
That was really special.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so then you have this kind of like live stream, uh, reaching the people that still wanted to be a part of this church culture and continue on this journey that they kind of started within this church. When did you guys start to see that this was a reaching tool as well? So you have like this almost like an ongoing kind of like digital discipleship kind of thing going on with like people that were a part that wanted to stay a part of your church, but then you also as we had touched on, there's also this like unique kind of, oh wow, like this people are watching this that like aren't a part of our church yet, or really haven't encountered the gospel at all, uh, and then all of a sudden they start tuning in. What was that like, and how did you guys manage that?
Yeah, that was something we heard very frequently when we were meeting someone who came through the door for the first time. It's all we watched you online and got a good idea of what to expect before we came in, and we liked what we saw. We we saw what's going on with with where our kids would be and the programs available for them. We were really on board with that, and so not only were we throwing out the gospel, but we were presenting ourselves like, hey, this is who we are to prospective people who would come visit us. And so it really throws it out there to everyone like, hey, this is what we're about. This is what we believe. We're passionate about Jesus. We want to meet you. Come be a part of this cool thing that we've got going on. And then we're going to go do this event over here. We're going to go pack meals for this community over here. We're going to do these things to help people. So people want to be a part of something big. And when you can display like, hey, these are our big ideas and ways that we want to help the world, people showed up because they were excited about that. Like, I want to help out with that too. So it was a really cool tool to get people in the door. And then ultimately, for a church, a website is a great tool to introduce people to your mission and vision and beliefs, and show how you do church, and to share the gospel. But ultimately, you're trusting that the Holy Spirit is going to be knocking on the door of the hearts of the people on the other side of that screen. And that's what a lot of evangelism is, right? It's planting seeds and hoping and praying with all your heart that the Holy Spirit is going to cultivate those seeds and water those seeds and grow it into something incredible. And it's like a Gideon's Bible in a hotel room or a gospel tract. A website and live stream plant seeds, and sometimes that seed is sown as a direct result of the message that you're putting out there. But the challenge then again is to be available and to create opportunities to meet that person and to provide those next steps for them in their faith and get them into community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up because, a lot of times, just in the church world, there are so many different challenges. And obviously the past year and a half or so have brought about so many different, unique challenges that, churches never thought they would have to deal with, like no one being able to show up at your door, things like that. And so, in your opinion, and again, this is just, there's no right or wrong answer, but where do you feel like the biggest opportunities are for churches right now, considering all that we've been through and kind of the learnings and challenges that we've gone through to bring us to this point? Where do you think are the biggest opportunities, when it comes to digital reach, digital evangelism, reaching people that, just aren't at church or, had no plans to be so?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that a lot of churches took away from this is that they had to learn how to be flexible and to be open to maybe this is something that this live streaming thing is something that we have to pursue because it's lots of states shut down and we couldn't go do this. And so we had to, just thinking of the church that I'm at right now, all of a sudden we had to get really technical really fast. And it's created a lot of opportunities to see like, hey, I'm doing a lot of things that I don't necessarily know how to do. I need to be reliant on other people for this. And so it's created opportunities to be flexible and also know like, I have no idea what I'm doing and I need help. And I think that those are some really, really good things to take with you moving forward. I think that creates huge opportunities for humility, and And so, speaking personally, from at this little church that I'm at right now, we had to be really, really flexible, really fast, for the sake of the gospel and for the sake of just maintaining the course for the mission that we were on as a church.
Mm-hmm.
It turned out to be a positive thing for us at our church, and we're so happy to have people there in person again. But um, yeah, just that flexibility,
Yeah.
that open and honesty of being vulnerable and admitting your weaknesses and getting help. That was huge.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well said. Yeah, I feel like the common sort of thread throughout, especially like, call it post-pandemic life, has been flexibility, creativity, being able to experiment with things when it comes to like, okay, what does, church look like? And it's okay if it looks completely different. Um, it's kind of given churches, not that we needed it, but almost like that permission to try new things, which has been, yeah, I just think it's been really interesting along the way. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And so I have no idea how to wire up our soundboard or our sound system. Uh, that is something that has been set up and for us. And if something breaks, I can take my best stab at it. But ultimately, I have no idea what I'm doing with that sound system. I
Wait,
can change the batteries on the microphones.
wait, what? You
Um,
don't? I thought you knew everything.
oh no,
Oh,
no, sir.
dang it.
So but I appreciate that little confidence boost there. But it was huge for me to admit to people like, hey, we're having some issues with the sound system today. Um, but I think that we're just gonna have some fun with it. If the microphones cut out, or if we're having some of these feedback issues, I think that it's just the way it's going to be today, and that's okay. And the response from our congregation was so cool. Everyone was like, "Yeah, this is awesome. This is real." And so I think it for our church, along with that vulnerability, saying, "I don't know what I'm doing," um, people just embrace that because they're like, "We don't know what we're doing either."
there's
We're
almost
just,
there's almost like a
yeah,
communal kind of like
yeah,
confidence that comes from that of like, it's okay. We
absolutely.
all don't know what we're doing.
Absolutely. And we want to have something nice and presentable, but I think there's so much pressure around that presentation every week that it was honestly a huge relief to me that like things can go wrong and it's not the end of the world because this guy showed up and gave his life to Jesus,
Mm.
even though the microphone was being a little wonky.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even when the projector bulb was being really dim that day, even though we just put a new one in and we didn't know what to do, um, people were still coming to Jesus.
Right.
People were still sharing life, and the gospel was moving forward despite these hiccups.
Yeah.
And so it has taught me to be okay with hiccups because our people, our congregation, were okay with hiccups. So
Yeah.
I've come out of it way more confident going into Sunday, um, because it's taken the focus off of the mistakes that I think I'm going to make and know that I'm going to make, and more onto how Jesus just is fitting into every single inch of that service, despite all my efforts, despite everything that goes wrong on a technical side.
Yeah.
Um, it,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a really good thing for me.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Okay. So just shifting gears just a little bit. So you had mentioned that when it comes to front doors of churches. Obviously we've all heard like, your website is like your front door, and now like live streaming is, kind of like one and the same with that. And I'd just be really interested, you being from a web development background, what if you were to, kind of like coach up the folks that are watching, uh, in terms of like, hey, if your website truly is your digital front door, what's like one thing, maybe two things that they could do like right now, to kind of like enhance that and make that front door a little bit easier to open?
Absolutely. Keep it honest and updated.
Ooh,
Um,
ooh.
there are a lot of churches out there that threw their website up, 5 years ago. Even if they have updated it, a lot of times they keep the same copy and message from their website from 10 years ago. Even though it might look a little different, it might work a little better on a mobile phone, it still has that old text. Go in there, make it up to date with what you are doing. Especially now with COVID, so many things have changed with your processes, and with how you do childcare or children's ministry or all these different things. So you don't want people to show up and expect one thing and get another.
Mm.
So if it's just like a quick little 5-10 minute change, just go on your website, make those little tweaks. It's you want to keep yourself honest with those pages, with what you're currently doing right now. And it's just one of those things where it's like pastors are so busy, and there's just no time to do some of that stuff on the website. But it just takes 5-10 minutes, even if you have to look up the login to your website in the email from 7 years ago.
Right.
It's worth it.
That's awesome.
So
Awesome.
yeah, probably not the answer you're expecting for that one.
No, I mean, hey,
Yeah,
that's it's. I feel like I need to maybe go check in on the sites that I'm in charge of, and maybe update those. Thanks a lot, Joel.
yeah, a lot.
You just added
Oh yeah,
it's
no problem.
added some work to my plate. Appreciate it.
Keeping you accountable.
You're such a pastor.
Oh yeah, I try. I
uh,
tried my hardest.
you did. You did. Well done. But it's not about works, man. So why are you trying
That's
so hard?
true. That's true.
Okay. All right. We got to get out of the pastor jokes. Okay. So Joel, honestly, like that's all I've got. Is there anything that we haven't really talked about that, kind of coming into this stream where you were like, dude, I really hope we get to talk about this, certain topic, like what's on your heart for, using technology to reach people that no one's reaching?
Absolutely. I think that just one thing, if I can share it, is just some of the similarities that I've seen between the two, ministry and then development and programming. On these, it seems like there are these two opposite things hanging out over here. But you know, honestly, when you look at programming, any kind of programming is extremely technical, and in my opinion, it's almost an art to be able to articulate the complexities of programming in a way that's understandable to everyone and still fun at the same time. And pastors have that same challenge to take God's word and the context of verses and the complex theologies, and accurately present them in in a way that sticks to their congregation, and in a way that's accurate. And every week pastors are expected to do this in a way that's fun and engaging. And as a preacher and a web developer, I'm working in two fields that force me to use those muscles of accurate and interesting storytelling, both in problem solving in my daily job and articulating the solutions to those problems, but also on the podium where I'm charged with accurately presenting the Word of God, to the congregation. And so, as I've worked in both of these fields, I've seen the similarities and just how how they forced me to again use that muscle of like how can I be creative in communicating this,
Hmm.
and still be completely accurate, because I don't want to be the guy that that presents the word of God incorrectly. There's a
Sure.
lot of pressure there,
Sure.
and at the same time, I don't want to present what I'm doing in my job incorrectly to
Right.
my employer.
Yeah.
And so um, there are some interesting similarities that have popped up in that.
That's awesome, man.
So what I would encourage pastors to do is to just look for those opportunities for creative storytelling in everyday life. When I lived in Minneapolis, and I was running out of illustration ideas, or like a fun little story, I take the city bus. I would I would sit on the bus and just kind of listen, or just take it until I got somewhere new, and have a little adventure and try to make something out of that. And in the same way, everything you do, there's an opportunity for an illustration, for a story, for a way that you can see God working in that moment of your life that you can share from the podium. Um, every opportunity in life is an opportunity for a story and for people to learn about what God is doing through that moment for you. And so there's always things out there to share, because God is always working, and always working through our individual circumstances. And
Hmm.
yeah, so
Beautiful.
lessons I've learned from web development.
Beautiful, man. That's awesome. Well, Joel, seriously, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to share with us about you, your ministry background, and kind of how technology has really, really synced up with
Yeah,
kind of like what you're doing currently, which is awesome. So thank you for that, and yeah, really appreciate it that you're able to hang out with us today.
thanks for having me. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Now back to work.
Yes, sir. You too.
I'm not your boss though.
And I'm not your boss.
There we
So.
go. There we go. There we go.
All right, we're getting to work, Nate.
All right. Promise.
Just
Promise.
Yeah, we promise.
All right. Cool. All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us today. Again, I hope this was valuable to you and that you got something out of it. And we will see you next week. See you later.